Hello, my name is Mr. Polk and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'd like to talk about stocks, and I'd love to give you a little demo on how to make fresh stock. Stock is something that we use in our cooking all the time. A lot of times we buy the stock in boxes or in a mix. However, it's really nice to know how to make it from scratch. It's a great way to utilize things. You have chicken bones, beef bones, things like that. It's great to utilize them. And also, it's going to lead us into our next lesson and how you can take a purchased stock and make it better. So let's just start with the basics. At the base level, stocks are going to come from the bones. There's two types of stocks. There's a white stock that comes from the fresh bones, okay? And then there's a dark stock or a brown stock that's going to come from the roasted bones. Here, we're going to make two. We're going to make a white stock from the chicken, and you can make a brown stock from chicken as well, which that's kind of what we're going to do in our next lesson, because if you roast these bones, that's going to give you that depth of color, and if you saute the mirepoix, the same thing is going to happen. So here, we have the bones, and then for the beef, what we're going to do is we're going to take these bones, which is like the femur bone, and you're going to see that it has the marrow. That's the important part, okay? The marrow is going to slowly get simmered. The marrow contains collagen. When the collagen slowly simmers in the water, it's going to get converted into gelatin, which is going to give the stock that mouthfeel, that thickness. When you, it's kind of like, gelatin is what would be like in Jell-O. It's the product that causes it to set. So when you cool a good stock, it will solidify. It will look like a Jell-O, pretty much like a chicken Jell-O. But when it's hot, it's liquid, and it has that mouthfeel to it that comes from the collagen turning into gelatin. So what we're going to do is we're going to roast these bones. So we're going to take the bones, put them in a roasting pan, and put a little oil on them. And I like to lay them on a bed of vegetables, okay? And the vegetables that we use in this is what's called mirepoix. Okay, if you see it typed out, it looks like Meyerpox. Mirepoix is your trinity. It's the carrots, the celery, and the onions, okay? And usually it's a ratio of 2 onions to 1 carrot, 1 celery. And what you're going to do is I like to lay it on top because they roast in the oven, and any of the fats and things that come out of the meat is going to get absorbed by the vegetables, okay? So we're going to need those, and then we're going to need the chicken. So let's take a look at what this looks like when we put it in our stock pot. Okay, so you can see that I have one stock pot for my brown stock. That has my roasted bones. And then this one has my chicken bones. And these I came from when I processed chicken. I saved the bones. So there's a backbone in there and some of the wings and things. And I like to have, you can have a little bit of meat, but you want it mostly to come from that marrow. That's really what's giving you the flavor. The collagen turning into the gelatin. And you always start with cold water, okay? So you'll start with cold water and pour that in, and then you're going to bring it to a simmer. Okay, so that's a mistake with stocks, is you don't boil them like crazy. You gently simmer. Something like this, good 6 hours, okay, for the beef, maybe even 8 hours to get, depends on the size of the bone. The chicken, you're looking at maybe 3 to 4 hours to cook down. Okay, so let's take a look at the mirepoix. I already started sauteing it. So the mirepoix, again, it's your trinity. It's the 2-part onion, 1 part carrot, 1 part celery. And for a white stock, what we're going to do there is we're just simply going to put the mirepoix in raw. But for the brown stock, to try to get some color and some flavor, we're going to saute it. So I have this sauteing in a little bit of oil. You want to saute it so it starts to get some color. So while that sautés, I want to talk about our herbs that we're going to use. And for that, we're going to make what's called a little sachet. And for the sachet, if you look over here on the side, you're just going to take your cheesecloth, okay, and open it up. And you're going to put all of your goodies in there, all of your herbs, okay. You're going to put in some of the bay leaf. You're going to put in some peppercorns. You're going to put in some thyme. And then you can also put in some sprigs of parsley, And you can even get creative and add even some other things if you want. And then you just simply have to tie it up. And the idea is by tying it up, then you can just drop it into your soup or your stock in this case, and it infuses the flavor. Okay, it's almost like, making a tea. Okay, so we have that, and I always like these because they're kind of like a little ghost. So now let's take a look at our mirepoix, and it's starting to get some really good color. So here's what we're going to want to do. One of the things that's going to make this pop and get even more of a richer, deeper flavor is we're going to add about 2 teaspoons of tomato paste. And the tomato paste is the concentrated tomato. And what's going to happen is that's going to brown up. It's going to caramelize, and it's going to deepen the flavor of our stock. Okay? So we're going to bring this around. And you got to be careful with this phase because the tomato paste will burn. All right? So we don't want to burn it at this point. But what you're going to notice as it starts to heat up, it's going to start to thin out and coat all of that good mirepoix. I wish you could smell the flavor coming out of here. And what's going to happen is once this starts to caramelize into the pan, not burn, but start to darken and make some marks, what we're going to do is something called deglazing. And that is we'll put some liquid in the bottom of the pan, a thin amount so that it boils up, and it's going to release all of the goodies. So right now, what you're seeing is that the tomato paste is thinned out, and it's starting to get to that caramelized phase. Because we don't want it just to be watered down tomato. We want it to really do its thing. So one thing you're noticing is it's starting to stick a little bit more. It's starting to darken a little bit more. That's all really good features as it darkens. Okay. And then once you're happy with it, then what you're going to notice is you're starting to get all of these bits at the bottom of the pan. These bits are great. Okay. You don't want them to burn because then they'll get bitter. But these bits are what really gives you that flavor. So what we're going to do to deglaze is carefully take just a touch of water, okay, and just a little bit so it boils. All right, you don't want to overdo it. And when it boils, look at that, it releases. And what this does is it truly cleans your pan too, and it allows you to get all of that goodness. Look at that wonderful color that we've created there just with everything that we've sautéed. So now what we're going to do is we'll turn off the heat here. And you want to let this stuff come to a simmer, okay? And again, I talked earlier about not letting it boil. Once it comes to a simmer from the cold water, then you're going to add your sautéed mirepoix right in here into your beef. All right, oh, it's looking good. And then, if you remember, when we roasted all of the vegetables, or the bones, we put veggies in the bottom. So I'm going to put those roasted vegetables in too. So that's going to add another depth of flavor. All right. And then for the white stock, and you can make, like I said, you can make a brown chicken, but we're not going to saute anything. We're going to put the mirepoix in. So we're just going to put in the carrots. We're going to put in the celery. We're going to put in the onion. And then the other thing is, you can put vegetable scraps. If you have the cut-offs of your onions can go in there. I love the little leafy ends of the parsley. We'll put that in there. I mean, not the parsley, but the celery. And then, this is where the sachets, the little ghosts go in. You put one in each. And then what that's going to do is release the flavor. And what you're going to want to do is just let this cook off. And as it cooks, you're going to let it simmer. Again, 3 or 4 hours for the chicken. Okay, maybe 4, 6 hours, 8 hours if you have it for the beef. The idea is you want all of the marrow to come out of the bone, meaning that the marrow comes out, the collagen simmers down slowly into the gelatin to give you that mouthfeel. But I know it's hard to see on the camera, but all I have is this light little simmer. That's all I want. And then as the soup simmers, the fat's going to come to the top, the stock rather, and you're going to take your ladle and just slowly skim off any of that fat. And then when you do the cooling process, you'll be able to get the rest of it so that you have the stock that doesn't have any of the fat. It just simply has all of the flavor. So right now we're going to go ahead and let these simmer, and then we'll check back with them in a few hours. So here you can see our stock after it's simmered down for a couple hours. And one of the things that you'll look for is in the beef, you can see that the centers of the bones have cooked through. Pretty much all of the marrow has cooked out, the collagen has slowly simmered into the gelatin to give you that mouthfeel. If I look at the chicken, you can see that, you know, your bones are pretty much just the bones and the meat's coming off. And something I want you to think about, when you're making a chicken stock, it's not a chicken soup. You're making it for clear. So any little meat that's on the bone, after cooking for 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever you do, it's not going to have, it's not something you can take out and put back into your soup. All of the flavor has been extracted out of it into the stock. So any chicken that you really have left in there is overcooked. It's kind of to that like mushy phase. It almost has no flavor because all of the flavor has been extracted. So we can take a look at what we've made here. If we look at the beef, we get some out here. Now, what you're going to want to do is strain this. So I got some stuff in here. You're going to strain this either with a chinois, I'll show you that in a second, or just with a regular strainer. But right now I'm just trying to get some of this goodness right off the top. I wish you could smell this. And then the next step is, let me get some of the chicken. Grab my ladle. And then for the chicken, we're going to go ahead and pull that. And then now, let's take one final look at the stock that we made today. Okay, so let's look at our stock. Now, where I finish is I was just kind of ladling it off the top. What you're going to want to do is strain it. That's where you can use the chinois, or you could use just a standard sieve strainer. Okay, so these items are really nice that you can use. A colander is going to have, the holes are probably too big, so stuff could go through. Here you can see the final product. Here is the brown stock that was made with the sautéing of the vegetables, the deglazing, the roasting of the bones. This was the white stock made with the mirepoix that was raw, not sautéed, made with the chicken bones. And one of the things you're looking for is that clarity, that you want your stock to be clear. That comes from the labor of simmering it. If you let it boil, the collagen is going to break down too quickly, and it's not going to give you that really nice clear finish that we're looking for. Okay? So in closing, it does take a lot of time to make stock. However, the flavor is always there. It's a great way to use up bones. If you had like a rotisserie chicken, you could use those bones to make a roasted stock. If you have leftover veggies, you can even make a veggie stock. Just put a whole bunch of the mirepoix and other veggies in there and let them give flavor. So there's a whole lot you can do. Because if you're making a recipe, like when I deglazed, if I can deglaze with water, it's water. If I can deglaze with stock, I'm adding more bolder flavors to what I do. And chefs will always have stock cooking and simmering and just getting that flavor out of it. So I'd like to say thank you for cooking with me today, and I can't wait to cook with you real soon right here in Mr. Polk's Kitchen.